Welcome to Simply Explained English. I am Lisa.
And I'm Eric. Do you want to improve your English easily? If so, you're in the right place. So let's get started and make English learning easy.
So, what are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is initial. Then we will continue with unlikely and to tease. Then dive into. And the final one is on the ball.
Okay, let's start with the first word.
The first word we'll explain today is initial.
Initial.
Initial. Initial is an adjective that means first or happening at the beginning. When we talk about something initial, we are talking about the first stage or first idea of something.
Exactly. We use initial to describe something that happens first, before other things. For example, we might talk about an initial idea or an initial plan. Eric, could you give us an example sentence?
Sure. Here's the first example. My initial reaction was to say no, but then I changed my mind. It means that at first I wanted to say no, but after thinking more about it, I decided to say yes.
I'll give another one. The initial stages of the project went smoothly. This means that the first part of the project went well and did not cause any problems.
Now, let's hear a short dialogue using the word initial.
What was your initial thought when you heard about the new business strategy?
My initial thought was that it could be difficult to do, but after seeing the details, it seemed it could be done.
I had the same initial reaction. But after some discussion, I think it might work out well.
That dialogue shows how initial can be used to talk about first thoughts or first reactions to something new. Eric, would you say initial is a common word in English?
Definitely. It's commonly used in both spoken and written English. It's especially useful when discussing plans, ideas, or reactions. It's a very useful word for both formal and informal situations. It's not formal or casual, so it fits many situations.
I agree. It's a great word to know when you want to talk about the beginning of something, whether it's a project, a plan, or even feelings.
Absolutely. It helps to clearly describe what happens first before other things take place.
That makes sense. Well, that's all for the word initial. We hope our listeners found it helpful. Okay, let's move on to the next word.
The next word we'll explain today is unlikely.
Unlikely.
Unlikely. Unlikely is an adjective, and it means that something probably won't happen. So, if something is unlikely, it's not very possible to happen. When something is unlikely, there is a very low chance of it happening.
We use unlikely when we want to say that something probably won't happen. For example, if it looks like it's going to be sunny all day, rain is unlikely. Eric, let's give some example sentences so our listeners understand it better.
Sure. Here's the first example. It is unlikely that we will have snow in July. This means there is a very low chance of snow in July because it is usually hot during that month.
That's a good example. I'll give another one. She is unlikely to come to the party because she is feeling sick. It means that there is a low chance she will attend the party because she is not feeling well.
Great one. Now, a quick note on grammar. Unlikely is an adjective, so it describes a noun. It is often used with to plus a verb, like unlikely to happen or unlikely to win. You can also use it with that, as in, it is unlikely that.
Now, let's hear a short dialogue using the word unlikely.
Do you think we should bring an umbrella for the picnic?
I don't think so. It's unlikely to rain today. The weather forecast says it will be sunny all day.
That's good to know. And what about our friend Mike? Do you think he'll come?
I think he is unlikely to come because of his big exam tomorrow.
That dialogue shows how unlikely can be used to talk about the low chances of something happening, like rain or someone coming to an event.
Yes, and it's a very handy word for everyday conversations. It's quite common and is useful when you want to talk about possibilities. It's great for both casual and formal conversations.
I agree. It's a word that is easy to use and understand, and it helps make your speech or writing clear when discussing probabilities. So, do you think it's more useful for talking about weather, plans, or other situations, Eric?
I'd say it's useful in many situations, like discussing the weather, events, plans, or even news. It helps to set expectations about what is or isn't likely to happen.
I agree. Well, I think we have explained unlikely fairly enough. Let's move on to our next word.
The next word is to tease.
To tease.
To tease. To tease is a verb, and it means to make fun of someone in a playful or sometimes unkind way. When you tease someone, you might say something to joke with them, but sometimes it can also hurt their feelings.
Exactly. We often use tease when we talk about joking with friends or siblings. It can be friendly or rude, depending on how you do it. If you tease someone too much or in a rude way, it might not be nice. Eric, could you give us an example sentence?
Sure. Here's the first example. Her brother likes to tease her by calling her funny names. It means that her brother makes fun of her by using silly names.
That's a good example. I'll give another one. The kids teased him about his new haircut. It means that the children made jokes about his new hairstyle, which might have made him feel uncomfortable.
Great examples. Now, a quick note on grammar. It is often followed by about when specifying what you are teasing them about, like tease him about his haircut or about her accent.
It's a word that can be used in informal situations and can be negative if teasing is too harsh or hurtful. Now, let's hear a short dialogue using the word tease.
Did you see how Mark was teasing John today in class?
Yes, I did. I think he was just trying to be funny, but John didn't like it much.
Yeah, sometimes people don't realize that teasing can hurt feelings.
I agree. A little teasing is okay if everyone is having fun, but we should always be careful not to overdo it.
That dialogue shows how teasing can be used in both a playful way and might upset someone. Eric, do you think tease is a common word?
Definitely. It's quite common, especially among friends or family members. It's useful to know because it helps you understand different types of social interactions. However, we should be careful when we use it because it can be negative sometimes, as we said.
I agree. It's important to know that while teasing can be fun, it's best to be sure the other person is not hurt.
Exactly. It's more useful in casual conversations because teasing usually happens among friends, siblings, or people who know each other well.
Exactly. Well, I think we've covered to tease pretty well. Shall we move on to our next word?
Let's do it, Lisa. The next word is dive into.
Dive into.
Dive into. Dive into is a phrasal verb with two main meanings. The first meaning is jumping into the water, like diving into a swimming pool. The second meaning is to start doing something with a lot of energy and focus, like when you start working on something excitedly.
Yes. So when we say we're going to dive into something, it usually means we're going to start it with a lot of interest and enthusiasm. Now, let's look at the first example sentence. After lunch, I'll dive into my homework. It means that after lunch, the person will start doing their homework with focus and energy.
Exactly. Here's another example. We decided to dive into the project right away.
This means they started the project immediately and with a lot of excitement or focus. They didn't wait. They just got started.
Let's talk a bit about grammar here. When we use dive into, we usually follow it with a noun. For example, dive into homework or dive into the project. When we use a verb after dive into, we use the ing form. For example, I will dive into learning English.
Yes, and so you can't separate dive and into. You always say them together. Now, let's give a short dialogue to show how dive into can be used in a conversation.
Hey, Tom. What are you up to this weekend?
I'm going to dive into learning Spanish. I bought some books and found some online courses.
Wow, that sounds fun. Can I dive into it with you? I've always wanted to learn Spanish, too.
Of course. Let's dive into it together.
This shows that dive into is a great way to talk about starting something, especially when you're ready to work hard or focus. It makes the action sound exciting or important.
So, Eric, do you think dive into is a common phrase in English?
Oh, definitely. It's very common, especially when we talk about starting something new, like a project or task. It's informal, so you often hear it in casual conversations. It's also a fun way to express that you're enthusiastic about beginning something.
I agree. It's a friendly and informal expression, and it's great for encouraging others to start something without hesitation. You'll hear it in schools, workplaces, or even when people are talking about hobbies.
Exactly. So remember, when you're ready to start something with energy, you can say you'll dive into it.
All right. We hope you found dive into helpful. Let's move on to our last word today. Eric, what's our last word for today?
Today's last word is on the ball.
On the ball.
On the ball. On the ball is an idiom, and it means being alert, quick to understand, and ready to act. When someone is on the ball, they pay attention and do things well.
That's right. When someone is on the ball, they do a good job and pay attention.
Exactly. Let me give an example sentence. Our new secretary is really on the ball. She never forgets anything.
This means that the new secretary is very good at her job and doesn't make mistakes.
Good explanation. Now it's your turn, Lisa. Can you give us another example?
Sure. Here's another example. If you want to succeed in this job, you must always be on the ball. It means that to do well in the job, you must always be alert and quick.
Now, let's hear a short dialogue using the phrase on the ball. Here's a conversation between two co-workers.
I noticed you finished the report early, Tom. You're really on the ball this week.
Thanks. I knew we had a deadline, so I wanted to be prepared.
It's great to have someone on the team who's always on the ball.
In the dialogue, Tom is happy because being on the ball means he's doing a good job. They both use the phrase to talk about being focused and ready for work.
So, Eric, what would you say about the idiom on the ball?
It's very common in everyday conversation, especially when people want to talk about someone who is doing something well or paying attention. It's informal but very positive.
I agree. It's a great phrase to use when you want to compliment someone for being organized, focused, or quick to understand something. It's also easy to use and understand.
Exactly. So, remember, when you want to say someone is alert and doing a good job, you can say they're on the ball.
Good example, Eric. All right. That's it for today's episode of Simply Explained English. We hope you found today's episode helpful.
Thanks for listening. Keep practicing your English and stay on the ball when learning new words.
Bye for now.